Hey everyone, thank you for downloading this installment of the DDT Archives Indy Lounge. Greg here, and hanging out in the lounge today is Brian Blade. Brian is a 20-year veteran of the pro wrestling business, and he was kind enough to spend some time with Chris and I, share some stories from the road, and his unique perspective on the world of professional wrestling. It really was a fascinating chat, and we hope you enjoy it as much as we did. Don't forget, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and our YouTube channel. Just search DDT Archives. There you will find our past interviews with Steve Wilson, the man behind Congo Kong, as well as the man under par, Dale Springs. Also on our flagship show, this week we go back to 1996 and cover WWF In Your House 7, Good Friends, Better Enemies. So definitely check that one out. We've been very busy in the lounge as well and have interviews with guys like Johnny Cove, Jaden Newman, and Braxton Hunter coming at you very soon. So be on the lookout for those. As always, you can follow us on Twitter at DDT Archives and Chris_DDTHSLB. We also have our Facebook page and our email account, ddtarchives@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you and get any feedback you got for the show. So once again, thanks for supporting the podcast. And without further ado, here's our interview with Brian Blade.
Today we have an awesome guest, or by far our most influential, championship-driven professional wrestler that we have hosted yet. Today we welcome Brian Blade. How are you, Brian?
Good. Thanks for having me, guys.
It's absolutely our pleasure. You know, we appreciate getting a 19-year vet in to talk to us nobodies that just love professional wrestling and are big-time fans.
Hopefully I could consider still a 19-year vet. How long this virus goes on, it cost a lot of us most of the year, it seems like.
Yeah, it's crazy what's going on.
Yeah, this is. I think I was part of one of the last shows that got put on in the country on like March 14th, so I don't know if anything else went off after that.
Wow, that late, huh?
We were we were in the last show we did was in Beatrice, Nebraska. It was a small town, Nebraska. So we got the go-ahead we talked to the governor and the people in the city, and there was no cases in the city at that time, and really hardly any in Nebraska at that time. It was just that was just kind of the week that everything fell apart, basically, where they canceled everything, and we figured we'd be okay there on the 14th, and knock on wood, we were. As far as I know, nobody was sick, and nobody in the city got sick until about 2 weeks ago. Wow. Down in that town. So
wow. But everybody's good down by you, family. Everybody's okay so far, dealing with that.
Yep, so far so good.
Awesome.
So hopefully it stays that way. It's crazy.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, we're very much in the epicenter of it up here in New York. So. It's been crazy. Both Greg's parents had it at one point.
Oh, I'm glad that they're over it then.
Everybody's fine because I was in close proximity to them. My quarantine ended today. I was like, I finally got to branch out. I got to see my wife and my kid who are living at her mom's, but it's been nuts. But enough about me. Let's go.
Everyone's just got to be careful and be smart and do the best you can, and hopefully with some of the revelations today that they might have a drug that at least helps it a little bit anyway. So hopefully that's the case.
Absolutely. We can only hope, because I know I'm tired of teaching every day from my my basement. Much rather be in a classroom.
I don't know how good a teacher I am for my kids, but I'm doing the best I can. My kids are young, so it's not as tough. So trying to keep their attention is the harder part.
Yeah, I think my profession has become a little more respected after parents have had to teach their children for an extended period of time.
Yeah, I'm sure.
All right, so let's dive into your wrestling career. So, having worked for 19 years, how have you seen the business change on the independent level?
Well, there's it's kind of follows the same path of, say, even the WWE, to where, and I guess, I kind of started about the same time TNA started, way back in 2000. I think they started in about 2001 or 2002. So you just kind of see there's more, I guess, spot guys in the business than there were when I first started. You see guys that are, I mean, everyone does a super kick. Everyone does everyone does a dive. I mean, every match you watch, there's a super kick or five. There's so many moves just repeated, and I think over time, and I guess some people say old vet, angry vet, talking here, whatever, but a lot of the psychology has been lost at times on what people are doing. Now it's just about the moves, and and then you watch certain events, and like, even like, especially AEW, which I mean I do like. I mean, but AEW, or even the big WWE matches, and it happens in Japan, is what your finisher means nothing. I mean, you've got to hit a guy with 5 finishers in some matches to beat him, and and like two guys that like Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano. I like watching them both, except when they wrestle each other, because I'm just waiting for watch one guy pull a gun out to shoot the other, because you've done every. And it's not like they're two big guys. One guy's 195 pounds, the other guy's 175 pounds, 180 pounds, and I mean, you're hitting them with everything. DDTing them on the wood on the ring, and guys are still kicking out and getting up, and I think that's kind of one of the bigger things I've seen change is your finisher at times is meaningless.
How about with the base? Has that changed a lot over time?
What was that? I kind of lost you there just for a second.
How has the indie fan base itself changed?
You know what? I don't think they have changed. I would say in bigger markets, bigger cities, they've changed a little bit more to where they want more spots, more action, more, diving here, diving there, this, that. When you go to a smaller town that doesn't get as much, say, entertainment, or wrestling doesn't come around but once a year maybe, they're just there to be entertained just like they always were. It's an old school crowd. Different places in the country are also different. More of the South is still the South, especially the places I've been to, say Oklahoma, Southern Missouri, Florida. Well, parts of Florida's kind of not in there, but let's say Alabama. Still a lot of parts of Texas are still old school fans. They want to be entertained. They want to know who the good guy is, who the bad guy is, and go from there. You don't have to do 100 different moves for them to care about your match or for them to care about you. They want to see the definitive. This guy's the good guy. This guy's the bad guy. And have you work the crowd. Where some of the places where you get to a bigger city, say, your Chicago's, Omaha, Nebraska, even it's in places like that, Chicago, Omaha, Denver. At times it's more of that spot type of crowd, I guess, or the smark type of crowd, I guess you could say too, that thinks they know everything that's going on, and well, that guy didn't do this, or that guy didn't do that, or he didn't, do 16 moves off the top rope for some reason. But you get to those smaller towns, and it's just old school. You don't have to do the same things. They just want to be entertained, and they want to be part of the show. They want you, to interact with them, and they're not the show where some of these I guess people say smarky crowds. They want to be the show, whereas other places just want to be part of. They want to interact and not be the show.
So that leads me to one of my questions: was how, when we say the fan base has changed, it's always been my theory that in the social media environment, it's fans have stopped being fans and become critics almost. So how do you feel like how the fan base, especially in like the social media age, has changed with their how they look at the sport.
Well, I think part of it comes with I think this fan base is like younger at this point. When you look at old school wrestling, you look at the '70s, you look at the early '80s. It's an older crowd. It's not. You don't have a bunch of 20 somethings there. Now you have a bunch of 20 somethings there, and late teenagers that think that they're smarter than everybody else because they've read 20 different dirt sheets that week, and the so-called secrets of what we do are out. So so people are always worried. Well, that guy blew a spot, or that guy did this, or that guy did that. But it also takes away the realism from it, because I couldn't imagine some of these guys back in the '70s, saying, Bruno Sammartino did this, or Pedro Morales did that, or can you believe Dory Funk missed the elbow, missed an elbow somewhere. We've taken away, and wrestlers have done it themselves. It's taken away that believability almost in what you're doing. Now it's so guys work. The whole match is worked out at times. I've seen guys in the locker room work over a 6-minute match for an hour. And so it's like, what are you guys doing? I don't get that. I've seen guys that have wrestled each other 100 times go over their match for an hour. I'm like, how do you not know what you're going to go out and do? And I think, and part of that, and the crowd understands that, because we've let so many people in on what we do and how we do it and why we do it. And we got, and part of it, there's, 1,000 podcasts on it that talk about this. and nothing against anybody's got a podcast. Yeah. But there's so much out there on social media that tells you, what we do, how we do it. You got shows like Dark Side of the Ring, which is a great show, but it lets you into what we're doing. So you go to the show, and even for wrestlers, it's hard sometimes to make people, want to watch it. Not even so much want to watch it, but forget why they're actually there. You got part of these fans that go there just to see people screw up, or you get places where there's like rival promotions, and part of one promotion will go to the next show just so they can try to figure out all the things that they did wrong on their show, or just crap on their show because they want to think their show's better. I've seen that happen hundreds of times. It's kind of ridiculous, and so it's not always. Sometimes it's the fans, but sometimes it's another promotion, and then their fans will jump on board, and everyone wants to be important nowadays. The biggest problem with social media is everyone gets an opinion, and that's and there's a lot of people out there that just say things for attention, whether that's true or not. They just say it to get attention instead of this is let's say, like, you using Roman Reigns as an example. I don't think he has bad matches, but
no.
Because you're supposedly shoved down somebody. They say you're shoved down their throat. You're gonna boo him. It's you boo him because he's good. That's why he's where he's at, because he's good at what he does. It's just everyone wants to have an opinion and thinks that their opinion is right, and I just think we live, a lot of it is a negative society, and people would rather tear somebody down, than say, hey, that guy did good, because, kind of the old saying is everyone wants everybody to do good, just not better than what they're doing.
Yeah. Just to, that's what we're trying to do here, is bring that fan perspective back, and it's supposed to be fun, and it's supposed to be entertaining. And when I was a kid, when I was watching wrestling in the 90s, and Chris and I are both in our late 30s, in high school, everything, I never was worried about how guys were booked. I never thought about that. That never crossed my mind. I was like, oh, that was a good match. Oh, that match is okay. Like, I never understood the fact that, like, people are always playing Monday morning quarterback with the shows nowadays, and it makes no sense to me. Just enjoy it. It's fun. Stop. It's not so much to think about.
I completely agree with that. When people complaining about these guys wrestling in empty arenas now, just be happy they're giving you some entertainment.
Yeah.
I've always when, because, I'm just a couple years older than you guys. And, I never thought about, I can't believe they booked that like that.
It's crazy.
Booked that, like,
What? I didn't know what that meant.
I don't remember being a kid, and even before I got in the business, really thinking about how, I'm so mad that they put this guy won over this guy. Like, why did that happen, or how did they let that happen? Who wrote that?
Nope.
I just watch it because, and some guys in the business can't, especially on the indie scene, can't just kind of take themselves away from being a wrestler and just watch the show and enjoy it. They're always trying to critique something instead of, I take myself away from being Brian the wrestler and performer, and just I want to be Brian the fan when I'm watching wrestling. I'm not in there looking like, well, that guy screwed up, or, there's some things that I find stupid. Everyone does. But I don't go into it trying to hope I find it.
No.
I just want to watch it.
Yeah. You hit it on there. You're looking for it, yeah.
I think for us, we just actually watched Starrcade 85, and we were talking about the Andersons and how the art of breaking down a body part just seems so lost on today's product, where they literally just attacked for the entire match, so you knew how they were leading up to their victory, and you don't see that psychology too much anymore.
Right, yeah, that doesn't happen. I know, the one match, the other night, Andrade kind of worked over Apollo Cruz's knee. And, but like I said, you don't see it very often, but he worked it over. Even let's say Charlotte Flair, she only works over the knee for a little bit of the match, and, but not the whole 15, 20 minutes of the match. Is she going after that knee all the time? Whereas it seemed like Andrade, he worked Apollo Cruz's knee, and then, the finish made sense. His knee gave out on him. Oh, okay. Well, he'd been working on it for the last 10, 12 minutes. Yeah, you're completely right. People don't work, body parts anymore. And, that's one thing I kind of try to pride myself on. And there's a complete difference in who I am, heel to face, in a sense, on how I work. If I'm a heel, I work a body part. If I'm a face, I try to get somebody to work a body part. So, a lot of times, one of my finishers is the sharpshooter. So I try to work over somebody's back, and if my match, a lot of my matches will go 15, 20, 25, 30 minutes. I'm working on your back. So the end makes, whatever we do in the end is going to somehow make sense.
We love that part of the wrestling. Like, that's why we stick to old school wrestling for the most part, is because that was what always drew me. I loved the promos, the old school promos, and I loved the old school psychology of wrestling.
I think all the scripts nowadays have kind of taken, like, you can tell the difference in an AEW promo compared to a WWE promo sometimes. Because there's guys you can tell in AEW, sometimes if you're paying attention, they'll kind of slip up just a little bit, because it's real. That's, you're trying to draw on raw emotion, where in the WWE you're trying to recall a lot of times what Joe Ryder over there told you to talk about, instead of just getting, hey, you got to hit X, this point, this point, this point. You hate so and so. You're wrestling him this day on the pay-per-view, and this is what you're going to do to him. And that's all they need. But instead, it's like they wrote down 20 minutes worth of material if you go out there trying to remember, like you're in a movie.
So, having worked in over 100 promotions, how do you decide which ones to focus on? Because obviously, I don't think you can wrestle for 100 in a year. How do you decide where you're going to go?
No. Well, my first few years, I just went wherever, whoever would book me, and just started going wherever. And then when you get on different shows, there's different guys that work this show and say, hey, why don't you come work over for this guy? And sometimes there's a guy that books for another show and says, hey, why don't you come over and work here? And then I just kind of, a lot of shows were, there's a lot of one-off shows you do where, the running joke is, tax return time and there's 100 new promotions out there. So, I've probably worked for, 20, 25, 30 different promotions that probably only had a one-off. So you don't really have to concentrate on any of those. And sometimes you just go somewhere just to go somewhere new, like when I've worked in Canada, I've only worked for one promotion up there, and that's CW Danny Dugan's promotion, CWF. Now I can't remember what in the world's called. Feel bad. So I was supposed to go up there this month until everything got canceled. But Canadian Wrestling Alliance, I think CWA, I'm pretty sure. But they travel all over Canada. But I mean, that's one that's the only one I've worked for when I've went to Canada. I've worked for 2 different promotions when I was in Mexico, and I don't think either one of them lasted very long. They were kind of just fly-by-night promotions, but I got to wrestle in Mexico. So, but a lot of times it's, hey, you want to come in here for a night? You want to come in there for a night? And then you kind of just start paring down where you really, places you really like and places, did you see going somewhere that have fans all the time that, sometimes, like when I was working in Amarillo, Texas all the time, they're running shows once a week. So I'd go down there every 2 weeks, basically. And they're still running. Well, they were running once a week at the top of Texas down there. So you kind of pare it down. A lot of times I would have a run. If I was going to Texas, like my podcast would say, I do a Friday night somewhere in Oklahoma. I do Saturday in Amarillo, and then I do Sunday in Oklahoma City. And I always try to pair my Amarillo trips up with Oklahoma City because Oklahoma City wrestled every other week, so I'd go to Amarillo every other week and hit those, and then. A lot of times I was wrestling for a promotion or 2 in Missouri that were wrestling monthly or bi-monthly. I wrestled for a couple different promotions. One guy had he changed his promotion. It seemed like every 6 months he'd get in trouble, and then he'd still have shows, but it'd be a different name. So I mean, I included those in the over 100 because heck, I probably wrestled for 10 different promotions that he kind of had that he kept running. I don't know what he was doing to keep supposedly getting these promotions in trouble, just throwing 3 letters together, calling it a name. But, I'm not sure. But when I, a lot of times regularly when, I'd go to Colorado pretty regularly for a long time, in Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, Iowa, and South Dakota pretty regularly for a while. And that was kind of my staple promotions for the longest time. But I said, I've been to, I think 36 different states to wrestle, and a lot of times that's a one-off, just because in the Indies there's only so much money to go around, and there's some guys that price themselves out of going somewhere. So if I'm going to, let's say I'm coming to your guys' promotion in New York, you guys have a promotion, and I'm trying to charge you X amount. Well, here's the thing, because I'm on both sides of it as promoter and a wrestler, is you have to look at how many tickets will I sell for you the first time I walk in that door. Probably not a whole lot. There's not going to be a whole ton of people that know me in New York. So it's not to your benefit to pay me $200, fly me in, get me a hotel. All you're doing is losing money. Now, maybe that second time I come in, third time, fourth time, I'm starting to get some fans. People are starting to like me. I mean, you're not going to bring me in, time 2, 3, 4, 5 and keep bringing me in if I'm not drawing some fans. If I'm not doing something, to get the fans to want to come back and either see me win or get my ass handed to me. So there's a lot of guys that price themselves out of, getting a booking because they'll want the moon the first time they show up, and nobody knows who they are.
How you mentioned wrestling in Canada and wrestling in Mexico. How do they differ from the United States?
Well, Canada's not really any different. Over the years, I've worked with a lot of guys that work up there, and I've booked them in my promotion. They booked me, and I've worked them in different, a bunch of different promotions. So it's really not any different. The crowd really, I didn't think the crowd's really any different. They're pretty much the same. Mexico, now that was a different story. Lucha's tough if you don't know what you're doing and how to handle it. I've done hundreds of lucha shows, so lucha doesn't really. I can do lucha. Now, after a while, if we're doing lucha and you're doing, and I don't want to call it. I'm just going to call it some of the stupid stuff they do, and I don't mean to put it down, but there's sometimes they're just rolling around doing this, that, and another thing. That at some point or another, you actually have to wrestle and do something. But when I was in Mexico, yeah, the crowd is pretty rowdy, especially when you're an American heel. They really don't like you, and you start beating up, one of their heroes down there, and you're trying to rip the mask off and this and that. They're pretty rowdy, but overall, outside of the language barrier, I've learned and I know enough Spanish. I can't talk in full sentences or anything, but I know enough to get by when I'm wrestling somebody or talking to the promoter or the booker. I know enough that I can get by, that I know what they want, what we're going to do. But yeah, it's a little bit different. But like I said, I've wrestled a lot of lucha shows too, and it's the Hispanic crowd is very similar, no matter if you're in Mexico or if you're in Texas or Nebraska or wherever. That you're still getting the same Hispanic crowd looking for the same thing. And then if you're the heel American and you're beating up their babyface luchador that they love, then they get into it more than the American crowds do. There's a couple times that a few of us have caused riots in the buildings, and we've been backed up against the back walls and this and that. And, you play your cards right, you can do it. You just got to be smart enough to be able to get out of there without actually getting yourself hurt or killed.
So you like talking about everywhere that you've been able to wrestle. So that's what your podcast. Where's the title? My screen blinked out of me. I had the title right here. So it was Wrestling Life in the Road is the title of your podcast, and I was listening to it on Spotify today, in preparation for interviewing you. So how did that come about?
The podcast.
The podcast, yeah.
I've had people ask me about doing a podcast before, and especially during this time, I'm trying to put some out here and there, because there's people that are looking for entertainment. People that there's I've had fans in different places. You should do a podcast. You should do a podcast. So finally decided, let me try one, see if people actually listen. And so the feedback I'm getting, the people that are listening to it actually seem to really like it, and usually can't wait for the next one. And I try to keep it at a half hour or less, because there's so much content out there on podcasts to listen to. I don't want to go out there and give I could go probably 2 hours if I wanted to, but go a half hour, tell one of the stories, and get in and get out, and hope people enjoy it. And sometimes I try, I'll put the dates of shows where I'm going to be at, or the MWA that I help run. Put what we're doing or our dates, and just try to put and then hopefully put something positive in there about something about positive about life at some point in there, and just try to keep people's hopes up, especially right now.
Absolutely. That's awesome.
So, our episode that we just recorded that hasn't been released yet is it's about In Your House, and in it, Mad Dog Vachon's leg is used as a weapon. And you were the lead trainer in Mad Dog Vachon's school. What was that like?
It was probably like any other school. Me and another guy named Austin Storm were the head trainers there, and really it was kind of in the middle of an actual gym where the guy there was workout equipment and everything else. And every once in a while Mad Dog would come in. We'd get him to come to the shows once in a while, do some autograph signings to some of our shows once in a while. And it was just neat, because I grew up around Mad Dog in a sense. I grew up on the AWA to start with. My first shows were in the Omaha Civic Auditorium. I think my grandpa started taking me when I was 3 years old, from what I've been told, and back in 1979. And my dad used to play cards with Mad Dog Vachon when I was a kid, so I don't really remember much of it. My dad said I tag along every once in a while, and they'd play it. One of my dad's friend's house, and they'd have Mad Dog Vachon there, and the Dusek sometimes, and every now, so, and Mad Dog's a big card player. And so once I started getting to talk to him a little bit more again, and yeah, he gave us the name so we could use it for the school. And he'd come in now and then just to kind of watch. He'd never critique or say anything or say much. He was getting a little older in life. He's pretty much confined to a wheelchair at that point, but still a good guy to talk to, and he'd talk to you about anything. But he'd never do anything like, oh, you should do this or you should do that. He just kind of let us do it. But yeah, one of the nicest guys, you could ever meet. You never get that off of, his old promos or anything like that. But yeah, he was a great guy to us.
That's awesome. He just had that look. You didn't want to mess with that guy.
No, and he wasn't very big, but boy, he made you believe that he could rip your face off. I mean, he might have been able to actually, but I mean, he no matter what, you believe that he could rip your face off if he wanted to.
So, talking about the AWA, tell us about your most memorable match that you remember seeing.
For some reason, the one that I remember the most anymore is Greg Gagne and Bobby Heenan in a weasel suit match in the Civic Auditorium. I just, for some reason, that's one of my first things I remember. Between that and, just Greg putting him in the sleeper and, Bobby waking up and doing all the stuff he does in the weasel suit, and that and, early memories of a pretty, Hulk Hogan wrestling like, Jerry Blackwell and Jesse Ventura and David Schultz. Those are kind of my earliest memories, of the AWA. And because after about, I would say 1983, once Hogan left the AWA, Vince started coming into Omaha after that. And the AWA really stopped coming because if I remember right as a kid, they used to come every 2 or 3 weeks at the Omaha Civic Auditorium, and that really kind of tailed off into almost nothing. And then by the end, I remember they were doing a bar in Council Bluffs, Iowa, which is right next to Omaha, across the river in Iowa. But they were doing this little bitty bar that I wasn't 21 at the time could even go to because it was a 21 and over bar. And I'm like, boy, they have just fallen. I couldn't believe how. I think this was like 1989, and I just couldn't believe how they used to. You could sell out the Civic Auditorium, and now it had fallen so far to where they're in a bar, trying to hang on. But that's what I grew up with. Greg Gagne was probably my first favorite wrestler. I don't know why, but he was the the baby face. He was him and Jim Brunzell. I always loved them as the high flyers, and then Hulk Hogan was always Then Hulk Hogan really became my favorite. Even the AWA, he was bigger in life into a 4, 5, 6-year-old kid. And then as I got older, even 10, 12. That guy's bigger than life, so I wanted to be Hulk Hogan.
What was that like? You saw Hogan in the AWA when you were a kid before he went. Mm-hmm. Wow, what was that like? Besides being bigger than life, obviously.
I don't remember tons of it just because I was so young. Mm-hmm. But I remember my grandpa telling me a story that one night, I guess he was. Now I don't remember this, but we were sitting. He'd gotten some really good seats that night. We were sitting on the floor. He said about the third or fourth door, and Hulk Hogan's getting beat up on the outside. People are cussing this and that, and 5 or 6-year-old me starts getting up, and I'm cussing the same way the other ones do to get off Hulk Hogan and this and that. And my grandpa, I didn't know what to do. He's like, I didn't know. He's like, I didn't think you should be in trouble, but I had to make sure you didn't talk like that. But he always laughed it off. But yeah, I don't remember a whole ton. Just because, even then, Hogan was still kind of an attraction when he came to Omaha. They kind of kept him in the, Minneapolis and Denver, and even though Omaha was one of their bigger markets for the longest time. By then, Winnipeg was huge. For some reason, Winnipeg was always one of their real big markets, and Winnipeg is not that big, but it was always. If you ever look at the results for Winnipeg, they always had really good cards in Winnipeg for some reason. And then by that time, they'd started to expand west. So San Francisco had become a big deal for them, Salt Lake City. They'd always had Denver. So, when you got to see Hulk Hogan, it was kind of as an attraction. So it was kind of a big deal because you didn't get to see him on every card, whereas certain guys, you saw a lot more of Greg Gagne and, Bobby Heenan was there a lot. You didn't see, I don't remember seeing much of Vern Gagne at that point, even though he was pretty retired by the time I remember. But he didn't come around a lot. Mad Dog Vachon was there a lot because he lived close. Baron von Rossky was there because he lived in Nebraska at the time a lot. So I got to see a lot of Baron von Rossky, Greg Gagne, and Mad Dog Vachon, and then every now and then Hulk Hogan. But I'd see him more on the TV show, him and Mean Gene on the. I used to get to stay up, to I think it was 11 o'clock at night or midnight on Saturday nights. The AWA used to come on in Omaha, and my parents let me stay up and watch it. So.
Wow.
So I was doing some research, and in 2007, you cracked the PWI Top 500. How awesome was that experience for you?
I thought that was pretty cool. You know, it's kind of a, it's more once you get to a certain number, it's more of a nomination. And one of the promoters or one of the friends of mine, somebody, it nominated me for it and sent in all my stuff. And it was pretty cool that somebody did that for me. And it's pretty cool to be in the PWI top 500 when, I mean, there's a lot of guys that, that don't get into it, obviously. And it just to kind of see your name in the magazine every now and then, especially a magazine I grew up reading. I thought it was pretty cool to ever see my name in that, or, see my name in the results page somewhere. I always thought that was pretty cool. And, I've seen my name in the rankings a couple times in the, when they put their different indie rankings in there for different indie promotions. I've seen my name in there a few times. So that was always pretty neat.
Now, the other thing that really stood out in your bio is you've held 42 championships, including 6 championships at the same time. So how does it feel to know that promotions and promoters have that belief in you, that they're putting their title on you?
Oh, well, I always appreciate that. I've never, there's a lot of guys that they politic or this or that. I just go into it. I go somebody's company, and my goal is just to help you put on the best show you're going to put on. And a lot of times that'll get you a long ways if you're willing to do something they ask, willing to do something extra on the show, willing to kind of do whatever, try to whatever you have to do to help out the show to make it better, and then you do what the promotion needs you to do or the booker asks you to do. And it goes a long way, shows them, and you show up every week or every month or whatever, you're doing. You're not having you're not no showing for, you wouldn't believe the amount of guys that end up losing bookings because, I mean, I've heard every excuse, I think, on the planet of why somebody hasn't shown up. If I'm booked somewhere, in 19 years, I've missed 2 bookings, and one was due to a tornado. And I'm trying to remember what the other one was. I don't remember what the other one was, but in 19 years, I've missed 2 bookings, and one I was on my way to the show, and a tornado gone through my neighborhood the night before, and I'd set up a generator, and my wife at the time, she couldn't get it running, so I had to turn back around to make sure I didn't lose all the food in my refrigerator and everything else to the generator because she couldn't get it back on. So I turned around and I missed that booking because of that. My whole neighborhood was trashed except for my house. Somehow it missed my tree, and we got lucky. It missed all my there was 4 or 5 trees down just around the circle I lived in, but my house was fine. The tree on the other side of my fence broke in half and fell on their yard, missed my fence, and somehow got lucky. Except for the power never came back on. Except for we turned around, came back. Half hour after I got back home, the power came back on. But, it is what it is. There was no way I could make the show after that. But no, I've always appreciated the guys that that put the titles on me. They know I'm going to show up. They know I'm going to put on a good show. They know I'm going to give them the best match I possibly can. I'm going to, help their guys if I can. I'm not out there just for me. I understand that the show's about everybody. And I understand where my spot on a show is. If I'm the first match, it's one thing. If I'm the third match, it's another thing. If I'm the main event, it's another thing. I'm not there. If I'm not in the main event, it's not my job to take away from what the guys in the main event are going to do. And so many guys, I hate when somebody says I'm going to steal the show. What does that mean you're going to steal the show? Are you going to take away, the guys in the main event are going to do this, this, and this, and you're going to go out and do it before they do? Or, there's a reason a promotion has these guys in the main event and have set this up. Whether you think they're any good or not, that's not the point. The point is to go out and do your job. So if I'm in the first match, my job's not to do 100 flips and 60 super kicks and a dive and this and that. My job, your first match job nowadays is completely different from what it was in the old days. The old days, just kind of, you go in, you had your 20-minute draw or 15-minute draw, and, you kind of get the crowd going, but, you don't do a whole lot. Now your job on the first match is to get the crowd going, get them into it, but not to you don't need to overdo it. You don't need to do 12 moves off the top rope. You need to keep it basic, work the crowd, get them ready for the rest of the show. And so the show should build upon itself until you get to that main event. It shouldn't be Johnny in match 3. Wow, he just dove off the rafters. Well, nothing else you can do after that tonight. So, I think a lot of promoters like the fact that I knew where I should be, where I was on the card, and help that part of the card. Or if they needed, a guy to work another match, no problem working a second match of the night. I'm not, I'm because the fans already paid their money. Just because somebody didn't show up doesn't mean the fans shouldn't get their money's worth on the night. So, and my goal is always to give the fans their money's worth, and whether I'm a heel, babyface or not, I do everything I can to give them their money's worth. And, I think a lot of promoters like that. I would show up if they needed help setting up. I'd set, I would set up if I needed to. If I needed to help tear down, I'd help tear down. I've never been too good for any job. If somebody needed advice, I'd give advice. If somebody wanted to work out in the ring, I'd work out in the ring. So I think it's all the little things. And the fact guys know that they could count on me, that, I'd be there, and I'd put on a good match no matter who I was against. They could put me against anybody and trust me that it's not going to be, it's not going to be bad, whether the guy's green or the guy's, if, Jerry Lynn or something, it didn't make a difference. If Jerry Lynn, the greenest guy on the card, they knew I'd get something out of that guy, and, I would elevate that guy instead of making him look like crap.
So we're going to start winding down now, and I want to end with what you consider your most memorable match against Vincent Goodnight. Why does that match stick out to you so much?
The main reason that was my most memorable match is just because we went to the University of Nebraska together. We met in, it had to be 1995 and 96, somewhere in there. And we'd get together every Monday, watch Raw and Nitro together. We sat there. We came up with our names. He came up with Vincent Goodnight. I came up with Brian Blade. We'd go to Raws. When Raw was in, let's say, Omaha, Lincoln, Des Moines, Kansas City, Raw and Nitro, we'd go to all those together. Heck, we were in the Raw magazine together. We had Raw painted on our chest one night in Monday Night Raw. We had third row tickets, and they put us in the Raw magazine back then. So that was pretty cool too, that we were in the, can always say that I was in the WWE magazine. But we wrestled. It was his retirement match, which I'm trying to get him out of retirement, but we'll see. But it was a retirement match in Holdridge, Nebraska, which is his hometown. And they used to have wrestling come through there in the old days. Once every, I think there's a guy in town that collected posters, said they come, once every 6 months to once every year. He showed me these old posters, are pretty cool. But we went there, completely filled the building up. He told us that we had the largest crowd that they've ever had in Holdridge for wrestling. So I thought that was really cool. But it was one of those nights where and I'm not going to say, it may not have been my best match that I've ever had. It probably wasn't his best match he ever had because he'd been off for a while. But the crowd was just fun. In the beginning of the night, I had a little match to start the night out where I was a baby face against a guy that was, basically we had a guy come out, run his mouth, say he should be the champion, blah, blah, blah. So I was the baby face at that point, beat him, people go cheer. I cut a promo against him, turn heel, become heel, and I'm the heel in that match. But by the end of the match, we're both baby faces again. So that was always kind of, and it just, we finally got to work together after, 20 years, of talking about wrestling. And, he'd been on Shotgun Saturday Night. He wrestled in Madison Square Garden for the WWE, doing some dark matches. He's got a nice match where Test kills him on Shotgun Saturday Night. But, after 20 years, we finally got to wrestle each other. And, somehow or another, our paths never crossed before then. And, we keep in touch a little bit here and there. Not greatly, but here and there, we knew what each other was doing a little bit. And it was just an exciting night. I mean, everything kind of came together. And, people loved it, and like I said, and plus we got the record for having the highest attendance in a town somewhere, so that always feels good. And so, yeah, it was just fun to finally get to work with him.
That's awesome. I really can't think of a better way to end this than that. So why don't you plug your podcast, plug your social media, anything else you want to get out to the fans?
Yeah, find me on Facebook, just under Brian Blade. I'm on Twitter at Real Brian Blade. You can listen to my podcast, which you mentioned earlier. What did I call it? Brian, I forgot. It's just Brian Blade, and then
Wrestling Life in on the Road.
Wrestling Life in the Road. Yeah, I always forget the last part of it. It just comes up Brian Blade on mine all the time. So, yeah, it's on Spotify and anywhere else you can find podcasts. It's on there. So, and like I said, I try to keep it at a half hour, 31 minutes at the most. So, people want to take a listen. I basically tell stories of being on the road, and just keep telling the stories of, like I said, being on the road, and I'll give updates of shows I'm going to be on, and hopefully those start happening here again soon. At least hopefully by August. I don't think anything's going to happen for anybody for May and June. Hopefully by August we've got something that somehow or another. I'm just how much will things change, and how you have to seat people, and you run your how concession stands and merchandise tables, and how you come into indie shows. How much will certain things like that have to change? I know when we did the show March 14th in Beatrice, we moved the chairs out around everybody. And it was a big auditorium, so we had plenty of room. We could move the chairs out, and they had their own kind of they had a big auditorium style seating behind us, and then the chairs on the floor we spread all out for people, just to be safe. But people walking in, we still, the person we had taking money to run the merchandise table, we just had them with a bunch of hand sanitizer and stuff. And, so all promotions are going to have to look into how you do that for at least for the foreseeable future, until there's either a medicine that says, hey, this will cure it in 3, 4, 5 days, or there's a vaccine or whatever, or it's you don't hear about it very often anymore. So that's going to be one of the challenges for everybody. But I appreciate you guys having me on, and like I said, look me up on Facebook and Twitter, and you can look up the MWA Midwest on Instagram if you want to follow the MWA a little bit. The MWA is at MWA Pro on Twitter, and otherwise you can look at MWA Midwest on Facebook. There's a couple different pages for that another guy runs for me. So yeah, I'll try to keep up with everybody on what the MWA is doing, where I'm going to some other promotions. I wrestle for a couple other promotions in Illinois here, right now also, and they're trying to figure out what they're going to do. Especially being in Illinois, where it's kind of hard hit, not like New York, but hit hard enough that they don't know what they're going to do, and so it's just a matter of everyone's got to figure this out, and hopefully we figure it out soon. And I hope everyone out there stays safe, and we get over this quick.
All right, and when things get picked back up and we start all working again, and we'd love to have you back on and pick up where we left off, man. We really appreciate you taking the time out today, and it's been an absolute pleasure on our end. So can't thank you enough, man.
Anytime, guys. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All right. Hope you had as much fun as we did. You can catch us at DDT Archives on Twitter. You can catch Chris on Twitter at
Chris_DDTHSLB. I got it right for once.
Fantastic. You got to work on that. And you can find all our shows on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and anywhere else you get your podcast. Once again, thank you to our guest, Brian Blade. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
All right.